Hi there, it's Shonnie Lavender, and I'm really glad to be with you today. I was feeling a bit frantic, which I think is perfect for today's talk because I'm going to be talking about emotions and feelings. So, whatever feelings you're feeling, they are welcome here. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about, and then I'll jump into that. I'm going to, hopefully everything is doing good here. If you want to say hi, you're always welcome to just give a little wave or say where you're watching from. So today I'm going to be talking about handling big emotions with care. And I'm talking specifically about our own emotions as parents and our children's emotions, maybe your partner's emotions, your pet's emotions, the people that you're living with right now. And this is going to be valuable to you at any time because emotions don't stop when pandemics change or anything like that. They may change, but emotions are part of our human experience. And so this video is going to be useful to you at any time in your parenting. And I hope also that it will be extra helpful right now when really many people are feeling a lot more emotions, or at least noticing a lot more emotions, are feeling bigger or more intense emotions, or maybe feeling some different emotions than what they normally notice. So I'm hoping it will be extra helpful to you right now. So I want to tell those of you who don't know me just a little bit about me. My name is Shonnie Lavender, and I am a parent coach. I am also currently a graduate student in clinical mental health counseling, which is really good for me. It's a good for hopefully the world as well, and it's a really wonderful experience. I am also a mother. I have a 9.5-year-old daughter. I have a husband, and we have 5 cats. So, and a fish. I'm supposed to say fish. I usually leave the fish out. So sorry, fish. But I work with parents, mostly moms, around the world to really help them create conscious, loving homes, really breaking some of the old patterns and habits that they inherited and experienced in their own childhoods, and helping them to make choices that really align with their values and honor both their children and themselves. So that's a little bit about me. That's all I'm going to say right now. If you want to learn more, you can always scroll through my page some, visit my website, visit my Instagram feed, Google me, whatever you'd like to do. So with that, I'm going to invite you to settle in with me a little bit, especially if you're feeling some feelings. So as I said, when I started this broadcast, I was feeling some frazzledness, a little bit of franticness, because it was like, oh, wait, I'm going to restart my computer. I had my notes in a different room. And so it was like all those things that for me then were leading to me just feeling unsettled, ungrounded. And so I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to invite you to do the same wherever you are. Follow along with me and get yourself really present in this moment. So I'm going to close my eyes. If that fits for you and that's safe to do, feel free to do that. And I have my feet flat on my floor. I'm sitting in a chair and I feel the chair underneath me and my feet connecting with the floor beneath me. And then I'm just going to take some slow, deep breaths. I invite you to do the same. Slow down that breathing a little bit. Especially if you notice you're feeling any tension or tightness in your body. You might even sigh on the exhale or really blow out. Just really do that maybe a couple times with me. Just allowing yourself to settle into this present moment right now. You might roll your jaw around or stretch your arms or your neck. And just thank yourself for being right here. Whatever's going on around you, inside you, in your mind and your heart is all just perfectly fine. And when you feel ready, come back to this present moment and gently and slowly open your eyes. Okay, I'm done. That always feels good to me, and I don't take the time to do that as much as I would like and as much as would serve me. So I hope that that was helpful for you. So I want to talk a little bit about feelings. On the one hand, it seems like we should all know plenty, and of course we know feelings because we feel them. But I think it's something that actually we're fairly illiterate at still in this day and time. Although I think we're getting better, so yay for that. And some of you out there may have a lot of experience, and yay if you do, share that with others because this is valuable and important. So feelings are really a key part of human experience, and they're not something we cannot have. So we may sometimes not like certain feelings. We may feel really thrown off, discombobulated, unsettled by certain feelings. So I'm not saying that you have to love all of them and say, I want to feel everything all the time. That's probably not very reasonable. And yet to think that as a human being that you can put feelings outside of your experience is not true. It's not doable. You cannot not feel. It's just not possible. So if you have, let's say, some ambivalence towards feelings or maybe some baggage from your own past, then I invite you to do your best to start to make peace with that and know that feelings are actually really essential and they're valuable. And I want to tell you why and how they're valuable. They're not just some ancillary thing that, oh, okay, it's this thing that I have to feel sometimes. It's not that. It's actually part of communication. So when I say that, what I mean, first of all, is that our feelings are communication to ourselves. So when we feel feelings, they are really a combination of things. And I'm not going to go into this deeply, but it's part of how we are wired as human beings. So let me give you some examples that I think hopefully will make this make sense. So if you have a sense, let's say, of something feels off, I can't name it, I don't know what it is, that's part of your body's communication to you. That's your brain, that's your senses, that's your interior senses, noticing what's going on inside, noticing what's going on outside of you that may be saying to you, this situation is not safe, or this situation is uncertain. This situation is lacking something that I need to feel safe right now. So you want that. You want that communication. If you're like, I'm just going to ignore that, you might end up in a situation that doesn't end up being safe. So feelings are there communicating in this instance. They're communicating to you, hey, there's something to pay attention to, even if you can't put your finger on it, what it is. So that's one example of how they communicate to us. You also might have a time where you just, you can't, it's this feeling, right? It's like, I feel something, maybe it's some unease, or maybe my stomach is in knots, or maybe my throat is tight. So you might be feeling some physical sensations, and that might be a signal to you, everybody's different, but that might be a signal to you that, you know what, I feel uncertain and I want to take more time to get more information or to check in with myself or something, so that's maybe that sense of, oh, okay, there's more knowing or feeling or sensing that's there for me to do. One more example that I have for you is, let's say you're really having this sense of, I feel really lonely. I feel isolated. I'm feeling alone. That may be communicating to you, you know what? I need to reach out. I need to seek some connection. I need to seek a lifeline for myself. I need to seek somebody who listens to me or somebody I feel safe with or somebody who I know gets me. So all of those feelings, rather than you could ignore them and be like, well, of course I feel lonely because it's a pandemic and I'm locked up at home. Well, of course, you can do that, or you can say, oh, okay, what's this feeling helping me to know or helping me to access or helping me to create or get or seek out in some way? So feelings, I hope those examples have helped you see that really they're very valuable to us just in ourselves. So this doesn't have anything to do with any external relationships yet. our feelings are communicating essential information to us all the time. Now, in those external relationships, so outside of ourselves, feelings also help with and facilitate communication. So I'm going to give you some other examples there as well, hopefully to make it again clear. So these examples might look a little more like behavior. And this is really important for parents because often we get really focused on the behavior and we're not looking at what's underneath the behavior. What's the feeling? You may have seen the meme or the picture before of the iceberg. And icebergs, as we know, right, are huge masses of ice out in the ocean, right, floating in the ocean. And sometimes they're, ginormous. But what we see above the water surface, no matter what size it is the smallest part of the iceberg. The mass of the iceberg is always going to be underneath the water. So this, again, as parents, we often get stuck on, oh, what's this iceberg? What am I seeing above the surface? What is my child doing? What are they saying? How are they acting? We get really focused on that and we forget there's this whole, you can't even see it because it's under my screen, right? But we forget there's this whole other piece. And that's what feelings are often. They are not always expressed in this direct, oh, I'm having this feeling and I'd like you to know it. They get expressed through our behavior. So here's a few examples. So let's say you have a child who's really in that tone of voice. It's like, mommy, 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 or they're pulling on your leg or they're clinging to you. They don't want to let you go, right? Anybody relate to that? Yeah, so, and maybe your partner does that too, I don't know, but that experience of, that may be your child's best attempt or the only way they are actually able to communicate to you at that moment, I need you. I'm feeling unsettled. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling insecure. So that is something, again, that's like, oh, that's communicating to you, another human being, this person needs you. Our feelings can also communicate to others, whether this is us doing the communicating or somebody doing to us, that you need to back off, right? Maybe I'm not safe right now. Maybe I am so close to, as Dan Siegel talks about, flipping my lid or yelling or raging, whatever your own experience is, your emotions, your tone of voice, the look in your eyes, even the dilation of your pupils, all of those things are communicating to the other people around you, there's something I need you to know. And in this case, again, it's like, back off, give me some space. And it might be, come closer. I need some connection. I'm feeling out of control, whatever it is. So you get to learn these with your children. But my point is that feelings, if we said, well, I don't want to feel feelings, I don't want people to express them, we may get to support, and usually this is a big part of parenting, is we want to support our children in communicating in the most effective ways. Because if the only way we know how to communicate our distress is by screaming at people and threatening people, that's usually not going to actually be very effective for us. So if that's your child, you don't want them to have that as the only tool in their toolbox. So yes, you want to be able to work with them on behaviors, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But by and large, we need to be able to feel the feelings and access those feelings accurately. Otherwise, it's going to be, we're sort of putting the cart before the horse. So I hope that makes sense. If you're watching live and it's not making sense or you want to clarify something, please post a question. Otherwise, if you're watching on the recording, post a question and I do my best to come back and respond after the fact. Or if it's making perfect sense and you just want to tell me, yeah, that's amazing. I love how you put it. Feel free to do that too. Okay. So the second part that I want to say about emotions and feelings in general is that most adults, and this is not a judgment or a critique, it's an observation that most adults, we lack the experience and the skills to deal with emotions in a healthy way, okay? Because this was not something that most of our parents had a skill set for. So we didn't see emotions demonstrate or We didn't see them expressed always in healthy, productive ways. So we don't have that, oh yeah, I remember, I'll just think back to when I was 6. So we don't have that experience to draw from. And they also often didn't have the skills to be able to teach us how to regulate ourselves and how to deal with our own emotions. So therefore, we are now 25 or 48 or some age in between or past that one end or the other. And we're saying, oh, wait a minute, I don't have the skills right now to actually know what to do when I feel feelings. I feel them and I know that, but I don't really know what to do with them. Or I have this pattern of doing it in a certain way that really sucks. It's not getting me what I want. It's detrimental to me, or it's detrimental to others in my relationships. So I acknowledge all of us for being willing to say, I'm going to keep going, even though I feel somewhat unprepared for this. So know that you're not alone. It's something that most of us are still working on and undoing things that we learned that weren't healthy or helpful, and trying to come up with new tools. And what do I do when I feel that feeling? So you're not alone, and we can work on it together. So I'm going to give a few brief examples of some of the unhealthy things that many of us are bringing into the present. And feel free, again, if you want to like something, like, oh, thumbs up can be like, oh yeah, I relate to that, or, you know, something, feel free to give me some input. But here's some of the ways, the unhealthy ways that many of us have learned to or experienced dealing with feelings. So 1, repressing and stuffing feelings. So feeling it, it's like, oh, I just felt it. Okay, I'm not going to show it. So one of the ways we might see this culturally, a lot of times boys are taught, don't cry, don't show sadness, don't show compassion, don't show anything that reeks of femininity in terms of our cultural setups. So boys, they're human. They feel sad. They feel scared. They feel vulnerable. And yet, for many of them, boys and therefore men, and that was my husband, I see he really relates to this. Yeah, they then feel it, but they swallow it back down. I've got to keep it in. I can't show it. So that's one of the ways that we've learned to shortcut our feelings. We have them, but we deny them by suppressing them or repressing them. A second thing many of us have learned is to judge feelings. These are good feelings. You can express these. These are bad feelings. Don't express them. Nobody wants you to express them because we don't like it. So I put on that voice because that's what many of us have. We've had these are good. There's a column. And if I asked you right now, you could list them. You wouldn't even have to think. These are good feelings. These are bad feelings. There are no good or bad feelings, but we all, maybe not all, but I would say 99.99 ad infinitum, have a list of these are good, and therefore ones I can express. These are bad, because I switched those. These are bad, and ones I should never express. So again, whether when we expressed the bad feelings, we got in trouble for it, that often happens, or we didn't see them expressed, or we saw them expressed, like maybe anger in our family was expressed in a really hurtful or violent way. Absolutely, then that goes on our bad list, right? Because that feels scary, especially as a child. It can feel scary or threatening. And so we come up with this good and bad list of feelings. A third thing many of us have learned is to deny or minimize feelings. So this might be where you had an experience as a child, something happened and you felt scared or sad or hurt. And so you're expressing, oh, it's so sad. And maybe you had a parent, and this doesn't mean that they were a bad parent by any means. It means that they were perpetuating what they had experienced and what the culture said. They may have said, oh, that's nothing to cry over. You know, it's no big deal. Well, BS, it was a big deal to you. And so again, even though they weren't trying to send a message that that feeling was unacceptable, at some level, you were expressing, hey, I'm really hurting right now. And by saying, it's not a big deal, or you shouldn't, don't cry, stop your crying, it's not that big a deal. Whether it was sort of mean or more just sort of, oh, I want you to feel better and stop crying, that's denying or minimizing the feelings you actually felt. Fourth one is censoring certain feelings. So I've already sort of talked about this, but the idea again that like, okay, I feel this, I can't say it, I can't express it, so I'm just gonna, try not to show it. And kids, I will say, kids are great. They are great BS detectors, especially sensitive kids, but all kids at some level, you cannot lie to a kid about like real stuff. Maybe you can, give them some myths about certain things, but kids are gonna know when you're unhappy and you're like, no, I'm fine. They're like, I see right through that. But that idea where we censor, okay, I feel it, but I can't. This is a prohibited feeling, or I can't tell this person. We do all kinds of censoring around feelings. And then the fifth and final, I'm sure there's more, but these, when I was getting ready for this talk, this is the one I came up with, was punishing feelings which are poorly expressed. So this goes back, for example, maybe to the yelling or the hitting or the kicking. So the behavior that happens is not something we want. And that's okay. So let's be honest. Like, I don't want my daughter to kick me. I don't want somebody to spit on me, all those things. It's like, I don't want those things. And yet, especially again in childhood, if we got punished when, okay, I'm feeling really disappointed, and what I did to express that disappointment, because it was really the best I knew how to do at that moment, was said, you're such a jerk, or I hate you. Yeah, right? So if then we got punished, then some part of our brain says, oh, okay, so expressing hatred or expressing disgust or disappointment or anger or upset, sort of a rebellion against, I don't like that you're taking some part of my autonomy, then our brain said, oh, okay, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. So if we got punished in some way when we expressed feelings, again, even if the behavior was not something that we would like to ultimately do or our parents didn't want, often the wires all got connected in there that said then, okay, that feeling is not an acceptable feeling. So I hope that makes sense. Feel free if you have any comments, questions, observations, like, yeah, totally relate to that. Hi, folks. I'm so glad you're here. If you are just joining, feel free later to go back and watch the beginning, because I've been talking about feelings, how they're communication. They're an essential part of our human experience, and they're really important and valuable to us personally, but also in our relationships. And then I was just talking about some of the ways that as adults, many of us have learned some not good ways, not helpful ways to deal with emotions, and how, because we have that background and experience or lack thereof, that we tend to perpetuate that in our own parenting now. So I want to get into now, that's sort of the background. So painting the picture, helping you know what we're talking about, what we're dealing with, why it's hard, why we sometimes feel so inept and we think, gosh, what am I doing here? Because we're just lacking in helpful experience and skills. And so we can gain new experiences by watching videos like mine, other people's, gain experience, get around people who are more emotionally literate. We can also gain skills. So I want to talk to you about some specific skills and some things that you can do to help really create a more feeling, honoring home. And so by that, I mean that you're really helping to create a space in your home with your family where you honor and you respect feelings from everybody, where you really have that sense of, okay, it's okay to feel this, it's okay to express it. And when I express it in a way that doesn't work, or my child does it in a way that doesn't work, we're gonna connect and we're gonna find a way to smooth that out for the next time. And even if it takes 10 next times, we're gonna keep working on it, because we know that we're never gonna get rid of our feelings. We're going to find ways to help them be part of our rich human experience and really they can give us such richness that we wouldn't have without feelings. We're not always going to like them. So I'm not saying that you're all going to love all these feelings, but you're going to have a more rich, rewarding experience, and your kids are when you gain some skills. So I'm going to go into that in just a minute. I did want to pause and say very briefly that parents, part of the topics for these videos came from a survey I did with parents. And so I'm going to respond to specific questions that you parents posed at the end. So if you pose some questions, just know that that's coming up. So let's go back to how can you create a more feeling honoring home? And these are going to be some random order. They're not really prioritized. They're all important. First thing that I'm going to talk about is you want to allow yourself all of your feelings, okay? And I mean allowing them. Yay, I love it. Allow them and also express them. And so when I say expressing them, there are some boundaries around these. So my husband, I'm going to use him as an example, and I feel really tenderhearted talking about this because this was something that was really hard for me to learn. I grew up with really wonderful parents who had their shortcomings, as we all do. And some of the messages from my parents and others growing up was that, or were that, anger was not something that I was really allowed to express. That was something I got punished for. The reactions of the adults were ones that I said, ooh, I don't like that reaction, so I'm going to stop showing my anger. And my husband is an amazing, strong man, and he has helped me learn to claim my anger and own it and be able to say, you know what, I'm really pissed right now. And to say it in a more direct way. And it's not, that doesn't mean it's always easy for him. If he were actually talking on this video, who knows, maybe he'll comment, but it definitely is not easy to always stand in that space of being not really the brunt of my anger, but being the person standing there as I am being angry, sometimes at him, sometimes at life circumstances. But that I share that example because he's somebody who's safe to be angry with. Practicing that being angry in that same way would not be something I would want to do with my daughter. She's 9. That it's not her responsibility to receive my anger and hold that space for me. I mean, there may be times when she does that, but that is not the most safe or healthy way. So just know that when I say allowing yourself all your emotions and to be able to express those, yes, and as an adult, it's our responsibility to also create safety around our emotional expression. We are humans. As parents, we get pissed, we get scared, we get worried, we get totally overwhelmed. And sometimes it's going to overflow on our kids. That happens. That being said, I believe it's really important for us as we're working to unpack some of this in our own lives to find people with whom we can really fully express. Maybe it's a counselor, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's the forest, going somewhere where you can really process some of your own emotions, but we all need that. So that's the number one thing. Allow yourself to really express your own emotions, all of them, in safe and healthy ways. I'm going to take a pause for just a minute because I see a comment from Hazel. So you're feeling a bit of guilt. Homeschooling, the isolation where almost everything is in the home has led to your almost 2-year-old getting your phone. Yeah, so taking the phone from him. Yeah, so yes, so that is great. The guilt is right. Oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I'm bad, there's something wrong with me. Or maybe I did it in a way that I don't like the way I did. So one, I want to invite you to forgive yourself and just say, you know what, I'm doing the best I know how. Second, if you did do something that really is not in alignment with how you want to be with your children, and specifically your son that you're talking about in this case, then apologize, make amends if that's appropriate. So we do have responsibility for when, as an adult, when we have communicated in a way that's not helpful, yeah, we own that and say, we don't get mad at ourselves and say, I'm a crappy person because I did this. We say, you know what? I'm going to learn from this, and how am I going to do it differently next time? So forgive yourself, apologize, and make amends as needed. And then really take that time to say, what made it easy for me to react in this way that I didn't want to react? And this is the same kind of, the more you can model this is the same kind of skills you want to be modeling and teaching your children, helping them see that, yeah, you know what? We do blow it as humans. We just do. So we can repair, we can rebuild, and we can learn. So model that with your own behavior and go, you know what? Tell them, I don't like the way I did that. And I'm going to work on how I can change that so that when I feel frustrated and something's happening that I don't like, that I don't grab it from you, or I don't yell at you, or I don't say something that I regret later. So I hope that's useful, Hazel. Another comment. Thanks, Stephanie. Struggling with 12-year-old right now and how she's displaying her feelings through behavior. She was told to get her room clean and she's overwhelmed, but she is screaming nonstop at me, telling me she will call Child Protective Services, that she wishes she didn't live in our home. Oh, yeah. That's hard. Yeah, she's feeling big feelings, and some of her behavior sounds like, obviously, and makes perfect sense, right? Now you're feeling, it's like, now I'm in the vortex, spinning around with her. So sometimes one of the things we want to do is, when we're feeling such big feelings, is give some space. And I talked about this actually in my talk from this past Saturday. I was talking about stress. And one of the things that I invite parents to do there is to, give some space and lower expectations. So I'm not saying you don't want her to ever clean. That's an important skill to develop. And yet it may be like, there's something else. It's probably not the cleaning. That's maybe the trigger for her. That may be sort of the thing that subconsciously, unconsciously, she goes, oh, good, now I can vent these big feelings that I'm having, that I'm feeling scared, unsettled, disconnected, worried, anxious, all those things that may be underneath in her, that this may be part of her. I've been stuffing them, trying to control them, and now they just can't stay anymore. So they come out. So that's in hand-to-hand parenting, they talk about that being broken cookie syndrome, right? So it's not actually the thing that happened that was really the big upset. It was the sort of popping the balloon, then exploded everything else out. So encouragement I might give is, again, get some space so that when you're getting emotionally unsettled, and maybe you're, as Dan Siegel talks about, right? So this is our prefrontal cortex, and the part of our human brain that helps us behave in ways that we want to and be creative and flexible and empathetic, all the good human qualities, right? Quote, that when you're starting to lose that, some of that control is starting to feel really shaky, that rather than being right there where you're likely to then do whatever it is you do when you flip your lid, whether it's, again, yelling, raging, saying things you regret, whatever, that rather than flipping your lid right in her face, that you go somewhere else and flip your lid, and you maybe, do whisper scream in the bathroom, just, and, curse your head off if you like to curse, if you want to push against a wall, something that you're not going to hurt yourself, you're not going to hurt others, but you're literally like, I'm going to get out this emotion that I have in myself. I'm not going to take it out on her. I'm not going to take it out on me. I'm going to let it out. So those are some good things to do. And then I think at a calm, connected time, like really checking in and seeing what's going on. 12 is a hard age, hormones. And then again, throw pandemic on top of that. Who's supposed to be able to deal with that? Not a 12-year-old, not 40-year-olds oftentimes. That's just too much on a nervous system. So yes, you want to help her with the behavior, and yet now is not the time. In the middle of an upset, and that's actually one of the tips I want to offer, that is not the time to deal with behavior. Thank you all for commenting. I really appreciate that. Back to my list, and again, I'll get to other comments if you post them. So another thing that you can do to have a more feeling honoring home, emotional freedom, if you will, is allowing your children to have and express all their feelings. So I'm going to venture that it's likely that many of you, as I have done myself, have unconsciously and maybe sometimes consciously sent messages to your child or children about certain emotions. Again, based on your own upbringing, based on what is hard for you to deal with, all those things. So you may have sent messages that have in some way led them to think certain emotions are not okay to express. So you may get to, again, rebuild and repair that. You can tell them, you know what, I'm learning. And you don't have to go into detail, especially if they're young. You could just be like, you know what, I didn't really learn how to express my upsets in ways that really worked. That's all, it's enough. And so I'm learning now, and I want to work with you because I want you to be able to tell me when you're really mad at me, or when you're really mad about something, or when you're really scared, or when something seems really uncertain or frightening to you. So the kids, they want this. They want this from you. They want it for you. And so you can be honest with them, again, to their level of development, and say, yeah, I'm working on this. So allowing them to express their full range of feelings. And when it's hard, you can tell them, I realize that I sort of tried to squash your anger a little bit there, and I'm sorry. That's not the way I want to do it. I'm still working on it, So I do want to hear when you're angry. They get it. They make plenty of mistakes. They know we do too. We're human, and learning is part of our game. The third thing you can do to really help feelings flourish in your home and help you all have the gifts that feelings bring is to build feeling literacy. So you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can name feelings, and you don't always have to use the words that we tend to use, right? Oh, you're feeling sad, mad, glad. Yes, you can do that, and that's fine. You can also say, your brows are really furrowed. Maybe you don't say that to a 3-year-old. They're like, what? But you could say, I notice your face is really tense. Oh, okay. Maybe that's their way they show concern. Maybe that's their way they show anger. Maybe that's the way they do fear. So you can also tell them what you're noticing. I'm noticing you're talking in a really rapid or really pretty harsh or different way than you often do. So you can do that as well. But so naming feelings, honoring sensations, and then acknowledge. One of the most important things you can do is acknowledge the normalcy of feelings. Again, there are ones that we have in our like column and ones we have in our don't like column. And so we may, again, unconsciously send signals that, oh, these ones, we're going to smile at you and be so happy. And the kids are going to, again, we're communicating to them so they know, oh, okay, that's good if I display that. And when they do these other ones, they may be getting messages from us like, ooh, that's too much, or who are you to do that? So we want to, as much as we can, acknowledge and share examples from our own life. You know what? I sometimes get really, really mad, or I get scared too. All those things to help them go, oh, cool, this feeling, especially young kids, feelings can feel, even the quote good ones, can feel really overwhelming. It just sort of overwhelms their nervous system. So knowing that it's normal, like, oh yeah, sometimes when you get so excited, you can't stop and you're running all around. Oh, okay, cool. That's good to know. So you can normalize that for them by sharing some of your own experiences, reading books about it, like talk about, oh, that character, how do you know that character is feeling sad? Oh, the look on their face. Oh, okay, tell me, what's the look on their face? So you can really use anything out there in the world. How do you know this person is feeling this way? Or what gives you a sense that maybe that's what's going on for a person? So those are some ways you can build emotional literacy. Fourth thing that I invite you to do is build time into your day to vent or release feelings. Because again, we know that they're happening, right? So they're just, it's not like, oh, they only happen on Tuesdays between 2 and 4. No, they happen every day, all day. And and different personalities are different. So some people sort of flow with their feelings pretty easily. Other people are more like, you know, they are bumpier with their feelings and feeling them. So if you build time into your day to have some of that release, sometimes, like one of the examples from the other parent here, sometimes you don't have to have such a big explosion at times because, you know, 5 of the feelings had already released and you only have 10 left. But that venting helps to do that. It also, again, helps normalize, like, yeah, you know what? It might be time for us to release some of that. And some of it, you don't always have to do it explicitly, like, okay, it's feelings release time. You can do things like, hey, let's, you know, run around, let's jump up and down, let's go, you know, play hide and seek. You can do that and have those be some of your feeling releasing times. So you may have lots of laughter, you may have tears, you may have yelling, you may just have, you know, all kinds of sort of popping of different emotions that go from one to the other, you know. So build some of that time into your day to release feelings on a regular basis. The 5th thing that I want to invite you to do is to separate, and this is one of the hard ones, I'll just preface it with, this is challenging, separate any of your teaching from being with the feelings. So empathy is the first step. Empathy, being with, honoring, acknowledging, accepting those feelings. That's first step. Then, and usually I invite most of the parents I work with to delay it longer than they think, but in general, significantly later, then comes the teaching or the conversation. It's, what was happening back there that didn't work so well? And that's so important because you want to, again, normalize that, hey, we feel feelings and we can express them in our family. When you don't do the empathy first and you come in and teach right away, a couple things can happen. One, you can make that connection, which I talked about earlier in my own childhood, where the child's brain makes the connection that says, emotion, feeling I felt is bad, not acceptable. Maybe even I'm not acceptable, especially when I'm feeling that way. And that's the message they come away with. The teaching sort of gets lost because they're like, well, nope, that's bad. So that's one of the things that can happen. The other thing is, think about it in your own life. If you're in an emotional state of some sort, usually an emotion that maybe feels more disconnecting, so maybe sadness, fear, anger. If somebody comes in right away and is, again, oh, it's not so bad, or here's what you should do, or, well, that was dumb, why'd you do blah, blah, blah. Most people do not take that well. We don't feel heard. We don't have the sense that a person gets us. We don't necessarily feel safe. And so when all those kind of things or any of those kind of things happen, we tend to sort of basically shut our ears to any learning that could happen. Somebody might have some valuable feedback for us, and you probably as a parent have some valuable feedback many times for your children. If you do the teaching first, though, and don't empathize first, it's very likely that your teaching is not going to get heard. And therefore, it's really just like a waste of time for you to have even talked about it in the first place. So empathy first, teaching later. The 6th thing, I think it's 6 because I put these in letters rather than numbers, acknowledge the validity of all feelings, even the ones that don't, quote, make sense, or the ones that you don't like. So I'm not saying that after this video, you're all going to be able to go out and go, okay, the feeling I used to not be able to deal with was anger. And so now whenever my kid gets angry, I'm just going to love it and be totally cool with it. Not very likely. That doesn't mean, though, that you can't start to practice acknowledging, oh, you feel really angry, or later, you might not be able to do it in the moment. You might need to come back 20 minutes later and say, you were really angry earlier. Or maybe you say this at the end of the day, you were really angry this morning, huh? Like, acknowledge it. You don't have to do it at the time, especially if you're not feeling capable of doing it. Don't pressure yourself. Let that be something you do later, but come back and acknowledge that feeling is valid. Even if you didn't like it, even if you want them to always love their sister and they screamed at her, I hate you, there's still validity in that feeling. It was valid, it was true for that child at that time. Okay, that's a really important one. The seventh, or the last tip that I have for you specifically, is to learn how to regulate yourself. And so by regulate, I mean helping yourself, like we did at the very beginning of this call, taking those deep breaths, slowing down, getting yourself in a brain state, like Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson talk about, where your full brain is online. So you've got the reptile brain, the part that's keeping you safe, keeping you breathing, keeping your heart beating. You don't have to do much to keep that safe, but you're breathing and staying calm so it doesn't get upset, because it's very sensitive, that part of the brain. You're keeping your limbic system, that emotional connecting part of your brain, you're keeping it calm, you're helping it feel rested, helping your whole body be well nourished, well hydrated, all the things that help your brain stay online. And you're helping keep your prefrontal cortex online so that it can help you manage these. They're not unwieldy, they just have a different purpose. They have their own really important purposes, and they're not so good at being the ones to problem solve, figure things out, do homework, run a household, live a human life. So you want to have all of them online. So that's what I mean by regulated. All of them are working together. They're taking information from each other, sending it back and forth. They're working in concert together to help you have the most fluid experience and smooth experience, no matter what life is throwing at you. So along with learning how to regulate yourself, is you want to become really adept at recognizing when you are getting dysregulated. So rather than driving the car off the cliff and then going, oh, I drove off the cliff, which is going to happen, hopefully not ever a car off the cliff, that's probably pretty hard to recover from. But in terms of emotionally, right, as a human being, sometimes we do just totally lose it. That is not the most effective way. We got to repair, there's lots of bumps and bruises in some ways, and that can be really harmful to our relationships. So you want to learn, oh, when am I starting to get across, like if this is your line, I don't know how to make that be a middle, like that. If that's your line, you want to see, oh wait, I'm getting close to it. You don't want to be over here and go, oh, I crossed the line. You want to be, oh, you know what? I want to do something right now so that I don't cross the line. So what can I do? What can I do that regulates me? Everybody's different, but learn those things. If you have some suggestions about what you do, then share them, please, because there's lots of different things. Everybody's different, so find what works for you. But that's a really important piece to, again, catch it early. And that's something also that you want to be modeling for your kids, like, oh, you know what, son A, you have a way of behaving that looks like this. So you can start to recognize when you're getting to your limit, right? Son B or daughter C, in this case, yours is different. So helping them each over time learn, oh yeah, this is my way I'm signaling that I'm getting dysregulated. And the younger they are, the more support our kids need in regulating themselves. The best way to help them regulate is for you to be regulated. They feed off of us. So rather than trying to make them be regulated, when they get dysregulated, as long as you can be a steady, calming influence, they will come around. It may take them a long time sometimes, but they need us to regulate ourselves for them to be regulated. Okay, so again, more than ever trying to get them to regulate, think, what can I do to calm myself? If I can't be calm, maybe I'm the only parent right now. Maybe I need to remove myself for a couple minutes. Or maybe I need to call in my co-parent. Maybe I need to call in a neighbor. I need to do something so that the energy in this room says it's safe. Because again, especially that reptile part of the brain is reading the situation and saying, is this safe? And if it doesn't feel safe, which means, like, if we're not regulated, it's going to feel unsafe at some level to our children's brains and neurological systems. So us regulating ourselves is going to be the best thing we can do to help their brain come back online and go, oh, okay, I've got a little more self-control here. You know, I'm settling down, I'm calming down, okay? I am always glad to work with people on an individual basis. I think in the description above, I put a couple of links, or hopefully they're there. Remind myself what they are. One is for my Conscious Mom Circle. So if you're not a member of that group here on Facebook, it's a great community of close to 4,000, mostly moms around the world, supporting each other in consciously parenting and consciously living and growing alongside our children. And the other link is if you really have the sense of, you know what, I want to build some skills. I don't have the experience and I'm not building the skills in the way I want to, then reach out to me and I'm glad to do a complimentary coaching conversation. We can talk about the work I do and what you're looking for. So those links are above. I want to invite, if you have questions or comments, to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to pull out the questions that parents had asked previously. So I'm put on my glasses, otherwise I won't tell you anything because I can't read it. Okay, so I'm going to read these. These came to me again through a survey I did, and I'm going to read them and then I'm going to tell a suggestion or two that I have for this parent or anybody who's, you know, in this kind of situation. My almost 3-year-old cannot talk without whining or yelling at me. And when she doesn't get what she wants, she screams at an ear-piercing decibel. So I'm sure some of you, I'm like, can you relate? Yeah. And I'm sure I've done this myself. So the first thing I want to say on this is I invite, if you find yourself in this situation, because one of the things that happens is our minds are really creative. We could all be wonderful writers if we all had certain skills, but our minds make up stories. And one of the things that happens, and we heard this a little bit here, my almost 3-year-old cannot talk without whining or yelling at me. So our minds go, it's always, this kid is always doing this. Even if we know better, there's that part that just goes, it's always this way. So one thing I'd invite is when you find yourself in a situation like this, focus on and look for the exceptions, right? So, oh yeah, right now it wasn't whining. Or, oh, he just said something in a really sweet, loving way. Only because it's not to deny, it's not to minimize the feelings this mom has, right? Of probably frustration, maybe even incredulity, like, oh, over it, I'm so over it. Not to minimize that at all. It's simply to say, okay, it isn't all the time. Okay, so it's not all the time, and I'm still really feeling overwhelmed by it. That's the first step. Second step is, especially with young kids, so a 3-year-old is young, right? Whining, yelling, to me, often, not always, but those are both really typical, I was going to say good, right? Typical behaviors of, I am feeling unsettled. I'm feeling discombobulated in some way. And so I'm trying to get your attention to say, I need you. And it's hard. Doesn't mean you're always going to be able to be there for them right that instant. But if you're seeing a lot of that behavior, that to me is almost always going to be saying a kid who's feeling uncertainty, who needs some connection, who needs some love, who needs some reassurance, and maybe has some fears going on. So my other suggestion specifically for this mom is really take some time to check in with that child one-on-one at a calm time and acknowledging where they're at. And sometimes it's just really about acknowledging, you know, you don't deal with the behavior at all. One of my favorite quote unquote things to say to my daughter is, whatever age she is, I'll say, sometimes it's really hard being 9, huh? It's like this lump sum phrase of, there's just hard crap about being your age. It's like somebody say to me, somebody could just call me up some days and say, it's really hard to be 48 sometimes, or it's really hard to be a mom sometimes, or it's really hard to be an employee, or it's really, so something where you're acknowledging your child's specific world in that moment. So you're not trying to fix it, you're simply acknowledging it's rough sometimes. Or in this case, because there's some siblings, it might be, it's really hard to be the little brother. Or your big brother's really been needing mom a lot lately. maybe that's all you say, and then be quiet and see what they say back. Okay. So those hopefully are some helpful things. Stephanie, thank you for your comment. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay. Managing my stress levels in just about everything. This was I asked what was the, main thing you really want to support around. So managing my stress levels in just about everything. I can't seem to control my emotions well anymore, even with the tiniest of problems. Okay, anybody? This may be this week, maybe this was, this year for you. Who knows? Maybe it's this moment. So first thing is you're not alone. Again, human beings and everybody's different. So some of us are much more sensitive to our interior world and the exterior. And so I don't know if you remember these things, they were around when I was growing up. It was sort of it wasn't a balloon, but it was like a inflatable thing that was weighted at the bottom. I don't know why they had this. You could punch it, right? It's like a clown, and so the bottom would stay on the ground, and you'd punch it, and the top would go over, and it would stand and back up. But so some of us are like that, right? We sort of topple over pretty easily. No judgment. It's just, yeah, we're like that. We go bloop pretty easily. Others are very like you would have to really, really push on them to get them to knock over. So we're living in modern times. I would equate with just being really high stress, not in the same way that previous times where there was a lot of, for many people, the norm was, fears about staying alive, being healthy, getting the kids through childhood without serious diseases. Most of us aren't dealing with those kind of things. Some are, but most of us are dealing with more existential fears, more stress on different levels. And so given that, though, I would still equate modern times with being super high stress. And again, then you add on top of that a pandemic, which is a little stressful, right? So all that stress, and this, if you missed the talk on Saturday, go back in my Facebook feed. It's also on my YouTube channel now. Go back and watch it. It was about stress. So under stress, our neurological system is compromised. So our ability to show up in the way that we want, so to control ourselves, to keep that human brain online, it's diminished. So if we're feeling stress and we're seeing our own behavior, we're behaving in ways that we don't like, then one of the key things we want to do is, what can I control? You can't control, I almost said Ebola, you can't control COVID. You can't control, what your neighbor does at their house. You can't control what's going on at your child's school. You can't control your children, you can't control your partner. None of that's in your control, but you can control certain things. So go back and watch the video. It's the latter part of it. And I talk about what are the things you can do to manage your stress load. So that's really essential, because that, if you don't manage your stress load, then your system is going to keep being compromised, and it's going to be super easy to keep reacting in those quote unquote negative ways, the ways you don't like. So when we see this in ourselves, number one thing is, how can I reduce my stress? And sometimes it's going to seem impossible. We're going to be like, I can't, there's nothing. There's always something, and it may seem minuscule, but I guarantee you any bit of stress that you can reduce is going to help you be responding in ways that you want to, okay, and have more bandwidth to be able to respond in ways you want to. Next one, get a drink here. I get impatient with my 5-year-old who drags on with tasks during this period of no school. Eating is dragged. Every stage of learning at home is dragged. I've reminded, nagged, threatened, yelled, made the child cry, but it's not helping anyone. I'm angry and it hurts my head. So again, been there maybe, or maybe you're there right now. So again, it's normal. So it's not being ashamed and saying I'm a failure, I'm not good, or I don't know how to do this. We're all struggling at times. And sometimes people are not struggling and you see them and you think, man, don't compare. Just know that they have their times of struggle too. So similar to before, like manage that stress load, look for ways to reduce it. what I would also say with this is see if you can find two things. One, what helps you and your child or you and your children feel connected? So cooperation comes out of natural cooperation, not coercion. Natural cooperation for kids happens when they feel connected to us. So it's not based on our role as their parent. They don't just automatically grant us, the respect because we're mom or dad. They really don't do that. That's more of an adult way of relating. Kids cooperate with people with whom they feel a connection in that moment. So if part of you're noticing like, oh, these things are dragging on or he's not responding, then number one, I'd say look for what is it that you can do to help strengthen your connection. So is that more play? Is that more quiet time? Is that more physical snuggling? Is that walks together? Is that times of no work and just being? Is it times of playing with Play-Doh or playing a game or building a fort? Look for ways that you can connect. Two things that's going to do. One, it's going to help your child be more responsive to you. The second thing that it's going to do is it is going to help you rekindle your love and appreciation. Because of course, as parents, we always love our kids. That's never in doubt. It's always there. And as human beings, we have our own feelings. And so sometimes other things override that love and we get annoyed or just, oh, I'm so tired of that, right? So being honest with ourselves, we have those things that make it easy for us to lose that perspective and think, oh, I'm just tired of my kid. When we still love them, but we're really more in touch with that annoyance. So doing things that connect are going to help you remember, oh my gosh, I am so blessed. How did I get so lucky to have this other human being in my life? And when you're in touch with that, when you're really deeply in touch with, this is not something I was ever promised. This is not something to take for granted. That part of you has more strength, more resilience, more willingness to step through the hard times in a way that is more graceful. So rekindling that love is really, really important, and connection is going to be a key way to do it. I think I've got two more, folks. Yeah, two more. Thanks for hanging with me, those of you who've been here a long time. So this parent wrote in, my 4-year-old needs more emotional support. I don't know how to find the time to stop and focus on him when he needs me. He has big crying spells, sometimes up to an hour, where he is so worn out and he still won't let me hold him. So I don't go to him every time he cries because he'll get so much more mad. So it's okay, you can come in. So what I would suggest in this case, a couple things. One, you don't always need to be there for your children. And it seems I know we want to, right? But the main thing is really in those big emotional times, which I know that's what this mom is describing. But to give us all a break, many of us as conscious parents, I believe, struggle with perfectionism at some level. And we expect ourselves to always be able to give them what they need, to always be the kind, loving, generous, patient, whatever the thing is. And that's not reasonable. You're just not always going to be able to do that. So I put that out there sort of as this blanket. Be gentle with yourself, okay? You're not always going to be able to bring it. Your A game is not always there. That being said, find those times to connect and soothe, because when kids feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure, then they're more resilient. Then they're able to tolerate more discomfort. So if their baseline is really strong of feeling safe, seen, soothed, and secure, then they are less likely to have so many volatile times. Now, it doesn't mean they're still not going to have volatile times, especially as things happen or they get scared about something or something, pokes into some feelings of anger or anxiety. Feelings are still going to come up, But the more we can give them that secure base of, I see you, they feel soothed with us, they are secure, all those things help them know that mom, dad, grandma, whoever the loving adult is in their lives, is there for them. And that helps them. So focus on some times you can do that. Connection is going to be great. Really, especially with a 4-year-old, I would say some play, some laughter. And I also, this may or may not fit, but my sense is that one of the things that may be going on is maybe he's feeling some real insecurity and some sense of not being powerful. So you might play some games that are focused on sort of role reversal. So him getting to be the powerful, competent, capable one, and you being the sort of, oh, I don't know what's going on. And you can do that with a lot of laughter and fun. That may help him, sort of climb back onto a steady place of like, oh, I'm capable. I'm only 4, but I'm capable. And may also, in the laughter and the giggles and stuff that happens in playing those games, may help him vent some of those emotions that are underneath there as well. Okay, final question. So if you have any questions that you want me to answer, get typing them, because I'm going to close this video up soon. I ran a little bit longer than I expected. I love this topic, though. I love to talk about feelings. It's one of my favorite things to do. And when I get excited, I talk a lot. There you go. Okay, last previous parent question. My 4-year-old has difficulty when he doesn't get his way, and I'm not sure how to help him learn to manage big emotions. Okay, I have a hard time when I don't get my way. Ask my husband. So 4. Okay, so we're at the 4-year-old stage, right, with these last couple of comments or questions. So one of the things, if you can think back, or if you can imagine, or just watch your kids a little bit, 4 is tough, right? So 4 is an age where they can walk, they can talk, they're pretty competent, right? They can do things. At the same time, oh my gosh, there's so much they can't do, especially if they have an older sibling. It can sort of trigger some of these like, oh, I know nothing, right? But so on the one hand, they are feeling and striving for so much autonomy, and they are so capable. And yet they also really lack, just developmentally, they lack a lot of skills. The other thing that happens at 4 is adults tend to look at, I don't know why I'm using my hand as a 4-year-old, but adults tend to look at children at that age and have a lot of expectations on them. So they're no longer a toddler, they're no longer a baby, and so they, quote, should know better. And so without meaning to, most of the time, we look at them and expect of them behavior of a much older child. And so I'm not saying this mom is doing this, but it is probably happening, I would guess, sometimes. And if this child were out in the world, it would be happening in other settings, because it just happens more at that age. So when that's going on, right, in that person's life, in that child's life, they are craving autonomy, want it, aren't super competent, have a lot of expectations on them. And so they also don't have a lot of authority at 4. And so, think about that. Is it easy in that kind of setting then to tolerate a lack of authority, a lack of being able to call the shots? Not very easy. Heck, it's not easy for most adults, right? I mean, look at the people who have reacted to stay-at-home orders. It's like they can't deal with their own feelings about that. And so if an adult has trouble dealing with that, how is a 4-year-old to be expected to tolerate well when they don't get their way? So it doesn't mean you can't teach the skills, but the first thing is to really empathize with, that sort of sucks being 4 and, not getting to say, how things are going to be and what's going to be for dinner and, what we're going to do now. So really empathizing with your child, that's number one. And that's another great time for games and role reversal. Let them be the parent. see what they do. Like maybe if they boss you around a lot, it's not saying you're bossy, probably a little bit, and I would relate because I do that. Don't do it as much as I used to. I'm working on it, but let them be in that power role, quote unquote, right? Let them assume that and express that and be that, and you then be the one who does whatever they say. And just notice, one, how you're going to like it or not like it, but that gives them that chance to, oh, okay, yeah, I am competent, I am capable, and again gives them a chance to vent some of their emotions around being four in an adult world. So I think that is it for my pre-sent in questions. So I'm almost done. So again, if you're on the live video and you want to ask a question, ask it now. And if you don't think of it till later, or you have a question or comment, post it later. I do my best to respond. I would love it if you have found value in this video. I know it's long, but please share it with other parents. Yes, I do this as a living, and yet I really want parents to have support all times, especially though right now it's really challenging for people. So please share it with parent friends and other parent groups that you're on Facebook. All those things. I do have more videos coming up soon. I'm doing them right now on Saturday mornings and on Wednesday mornings. Well, it's morning for me, but whatever time it is for you, this is the time I'm doing them. The best way to stay informed is like Shonnie Lavender Parent Coaching here on Facebook. If it's not a convenient time, go over to my YouTube channel. It's right over there. Not really. I don't know. It's on your computer. Go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/C as in channel /Shonnie Lavender. I'll also put it in the comments. But you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, and again, sign up for the Conscious Mom Circle if you're not already a member. And for those of you, whether you've been here all along or you just joined a little bit ago, I really appreciate you being here with me. I can talk to an empty room, but it's always nice to be here with others. So thank you for taking this time out of your day to be with me. And thank you for all that you're doing in your families and doing the very best you know how to show up as a conscious, loving, compassionate person with your family members and also with yourself. I send you all my best wishes, and I'll look forward to connecting again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.